Okay, my friends, it is just after the launch of the RTX 3080 performance embargoes, and I have just sat through so many different videos, watching them all at around 4.5 times speed to get through all of the major reviews to kind of see what the general idea of the RTX 3080 is. And in case you're wondering what listening to something at 4.5 times speed is, here's Paul's hardware. Okay, so I've basically sat through the majority of the major reviews that have come out, as you can see here. I've listened to most of them, and I just kind of want to give you a brief breakdown of what they are like. So number one, the big main thing is that I listen to them at 4.5 times speed. So all of the fine details, all of the granular information, you should absolutely be watching these people's videos, which will be linked out in the video description for you to go check out and get all of those fine details. But the rough overshot idea is that NVIDIA, when they said that the 3080 is twice the performance of the 2080, they were talking in fully ray traced scenarios, not in actual gaming scenarios. In gaming scenarios, we're looking at 25 to 35% faster than the 2080 Ti and around between 50 and 90% faster than the 2080, depending on the game. If you want to get double the performance, we're looking 1080 to 3080 does look like it's doubling the performance. So that's the main thing about the 3080. The performance is actually very good, and considering it comes in at the $699 price point, it is absolutely worth it when you compare it to price to performance against every other card that is out there. So that's the general gist. I do want to kind of review the reviews that I've kind of seen out there, and I would have to say that if you're looking to get the best overall general idea of these cards, I would recommend a couple people in general. Linus Tech Tips obviously does a really good job of presenting this as a gaming focus, but also some productivity focused stuff without too much detail on the nitty gritty. Zach's Tech Turf also does the same, and he was in fact the only YouTuber that I saw who actually showed you what you can do with your 2080 now that you do have your 30 series, which was incredibly helpful. Nobody else covered that. Then Jay's 2 cents does a remarkable job of breaking it down in very simple plain language, including the fact that essentially the RTX 3080 provides 1080p FPS level of the 2080 Ti and brings that to 1440p. So what you were getting at 1080p on the 2080 Ti is now what you're getting at 1440p with the 3080. Check his review out as well. And then Paul's Hardware does a good job of breaking it down. But there are a couple other reviews I do want to kind of mention because they're super helpful for you understanding where you stand in your system, not just the ones that are benchmarking and testing with the 3950X, because the majority of these reviewers did test these with higher end systems. So that's something that is kind of unattainable for a lot of people and not necessarily representative of what your experience would be with a 3080. And thankfully, we have reviewers such as Bitwit, who tested his with the 3600 XT, and Hardware Canucks, who tested it with the i7-7700K to see what a previous generation CPU would perform like with the RTX 3080. There is a difference, so be aware of that, but check their videos to see more or less how your system, if you're not running on the highest end hardware, performs with the current cards. However, after watching all of the reviews, I will say that it doesn't appear like there's any big difference between PCI Express 3.0 and PCI Express 4.0, simply because we do run into CPU bottlenecks more than we're running into PCI Express bandwidth bottlenecks. Potentially, that might change when it comes to the RTX 3090, but across the dozen or so reviews that I've already taken in, there wasn't a big difference. It's mostly down to CPU versus CPU rather than PCI Express generation to PCI Express generation. So those are the general, this is how it's going to perform in your system, relative gaming benchmarks. I do want to also mention that if you're looking for a super deep dive on a bunch of games, Hardware Unboxed does break it down. They have tons of charts. Horizon Zero Dawn, the 3080 performs 69% better than the 2080 at 1440p. Nice. They have all of the things that you're looking for. You can see that their review is very well laid out and broken down into each game, so you can see what your performance should be like in a lot of games that you might be wanting to test. And then also Gamers Nexus has a 32-minute review which covers not only the gaming performance but also deep dives into the thermal, the pressure mounting of the GPU, and they said that they're going to have a breakdown of the new cooler later today. So definitely go check it out for that. But I'm sure a lot of you already know that if you want the deepest dive dive information, you go to Gamers Nexus as it is. I will say they also released a 30-minute video yesterday on the microarchitectural differences between Ampere and Turing, which might help you get a greater understanding with why the 3080 is able to do some of the things that it's doing versus the 2080 and the 2080 Ti. Then you can also go ahead and check out Digital Foundry, who does a very good job of presenting not only the FPS differences between the cards, but also the percentage differences between the cards, showing that indeed the 3080 is usually 2 to 2.5 times that of an GTX 1080. So you can check them out for a good deep dive there as well. And then I just want to mention one last reviewer who actually tested it from a completely different perspective, and that is Alpha Gaming, who not only released a video on NVIDIA's broadcast and showing you how their new green screen technology works on top of the fact that it has RTX voice, but then also how it performs as a single streaming setup versus a dual streaming PC. So definitely go check out Harris Heller's videos down below at the links in the video description. So that's the general breakdown. You want regular gaming, you've got that. You want super deep dives, you got that. You want some streaming, that's thrown in there too. I kind of watched all of these videos to kind of give you a breakdown of who you should be looking at for what information you might be wanting to take a look at personally and which systems are more relevant to the everyman average consumer. But as we're standing here, it does look like a lot of the information that came out before launch has been validated. The fact that we're looking at a 70% performance uplift in certain scenarios. One of the points that Jay's 2 cents made in his video, which I think is a very valid point, is the fact that the money that you're saving from a 2080 Ti to a 3080, that $500 difference, you're more than likely going to be better off upgrading your monitor than upgrading your CPU or upgrading your system, because these cards scale better at higher resolutions, because then they're not CPU bottlenecks. So if you are on something like an 8700K, you're probably better off, instead of switching to the latest Intel 10 series or the new Ryzen 9 3900 XT, spending that $500 to $700 you'd spend on a CPU and motherboard and just get a 4K 60 Hz or 1440p 144 Hz monitor, because that's going to increase your experience with these cards without necessitating an entire system overhaul. And also, just as a brief mention, it does look like the Founders Edition cooler is actually much better than the 20 series. They have done redesigns that actually give much better thermal performance. We're likely going to see even better thermal performance from the AIB partners, but it does look like NVIDIA has designed something that you can actually be confident in when it comes to air cooling. You don't necessarily have to move on like you did with AMD's reference blower style coolers. That doesn't exist anymore. The 20 series was better than a blower cooler, but not that great. It does look like with the 30 series, NVIDIA has actually caught up with AIB partners as far as the cooling goes. So that's the perspective that they're coming at with that, with regards to whether or not the 3080 is worth it. And it does absolutely get me excited to be able to purchase mine tomorrow. I will have to wait until they open up. I'm hoping Best Buy has some local pickup, because I'm going to check there first. If not, I'll be buying directly from NVIDIA's website. But this confirms essentially everything that I was wanting in the RTX 3080. It means that I can be confident in my purchases. And in case you want AIB partner reviews, the embargo for that is tomorrow. We'll have to see how many YouTubers even had time to do an AIB partner review in between the fact that they're working on an RTX Founders Edition. We'll see how many of those come out tomorrow, but tomorrow release date, as well as AIB partners. I'm excited for that. What do you think of the RTX 3080? Were there any of the reviews that hit it at the perspective that you wanted to see? Did you want to see more people testing with Ryzen 5s? Did you want to see more people testing with more everyday scenarios, kind of like what Bitwit and Hardware Canucks did? Let me know down in the comments. Also, please let me know which was your favorite review that you've seen so far today. And don't forget that we're going to be streaming later today, because it is the PS5 announcement day. Sony is having a 40-minute announcement of the PS5. We're hoping that we're going to get release dates and launch pricing for the PlayStation 5. So come check us and follow us at twitch.tv/UFDisciple. And that's going to be it for this video. I hope this was helpful to some extent, that this could give you some clarity of which review to watch first, or which review is going to matter the most to you. Let me know if you like these review breakdowns. I might consider doing them for future product releases when I don't actually have the physical product with me. Keen to hear from you. Sound off down below. Hit the like button, get subscribed. I'm Brett with the UFD Tech channel. Thank you so much for watching. I'll catch you in the next one. Goodbye.